Good afternoon once again. I am back with Riot Zone, which is the PC CD port of a game called Riot City in the arcade. From what I understand, there were a few changes that were made between the arcade version and this port. Basically, your similar story to Final Fight, Streets of Rage, or any kind of... You basically have some evil corporation taking over the city. The police chief, who the characters work for, can't seem to get any more cooperation and refuses to have a warrant made to capture him. So Tony and Hawk decide to quit the force and go after the Dragon Zone squad themselves. So with that, just go to options real quick, change the credits to 5, and that's simply only because the enemies do get quite a bit more aggressive during the levels. As the levels go on, start in 3, 2, 1, go. Hawk looks like your typical Cody or such, but without the great usage of a decent punch attack. His special attack looks like, basically might remind you of Terry Bogard. Tony is a breakdancer, and despite his looks, he doesn't have any wrestling type moves. But if he's surrounded by enemies, then you'll be seeing that quite a bit. The majority of the enemies, you will always only see 3 enemies on the screen, but unfortunately they don't like to come near you. A good majority of the enemies, the worst you'll actually have to deal with is once they hit you, unless you have enough energy to utilize your breakdancing move, spin move, they won't stop. And if more than one enemy is actually hitting you at the same time, then the damage really adds up quick. So just as you have the range to hit them, they also have the range to hit you as well. Unfortunately, throws aren't all that great. It's actually more damage to unleash a full four hit combo than two throws would actually do. But the good thing about throws is if you can line the enemies up to an extent, a thrown enemy will get hit into another one. Especially if you would like to be able to keep enemies lined up. All of the enemies in stage 1, Fats, Liz, and the others aren't really a threat, with the exception of just if they do their full combo on you. If you're not using a special move. The more dangerous enemies don't really start showing up until the next stage. And a good majority of these enemies you'll see the entire game. best thing you can hope for is to be in a specific spot when the enemy drops down, so this way you can just immediately throw them. It's too bad that Tony doesn't have some sort of power driver or suplex or some kind of wrestling move, just anything that could be useful as for more damage, especially because the throws that they do, with the exception of just finishing a character off, is almost worthless. As you can see, once you start to get hit by an enemy, they don't stop, and there's no way to interrupt them without using your special. I believe from the arcade version, Riot, I believe they changed the names. For when they made this port. So instead of Tony and Hawk, I believe Bobby was one of the names, but I don't recall what the other character's name is. It's a shame the enemies aren't aggressive enough to attack you unless your back is turned. But it's also unfortunate that your character no matter which character you pick, the stages are semi-long, and the character walks very slow. Fortunately, when some of the enemies jump at you, you can hit them with a regular punch. But it depends on what attack the enemies are doing too. At the very least, when the game is paused, which is select in this version, actually pressing the run button also, along with either pressing the run button or pressing both of the buttons, execute the spin break dance attack. But if you press the select button that pauses the game, the music will continue. Fortunately, throws are probably only more effective against the characters who have a very small amount of life. Alternatively, you can do a two-hit combo into a throw. Now we meet the first half of the first boss. Mr. Lee, who's dangerous with his punch attack. I actually forgot about the jump kick. I rarely see it. Once you get rid of half of Mr. Lee's energy, that should have happened a couple of seconds ago. Once you get rid of half of Mr. Lee's energy, both of you for some reason decide to take this large jump from this large fall, and then you meet the other half of the boss, Miss Chan. Miss Chan will basically jump on top of Mr. Lee's shoulders and do a kind of a dive claw attack. But once you get rid of one half, you don't have to worry about that combined attack happening anymore. Probably the one good thing about the special is it does last for a second, so it's actually very effective if you have enemies just near enough. After each round clears, instead of having break the barrels or anything, all you're treated to is a small cutscene of the character getting rid of the wanted poster a la Sunset Riders. But fortunately, you can just skip it. I think personally I would have preferred something like break the glass mirror, break the barrel, something. Something not as generic as that particular cutscene. It does unfortunately take quite a small time for the next level to load up. Now we have new henchmen. The cane carrying enemies, no threat. They're just about as much threat as the enemy and the enemies in the green and blue jackets that I'm getting rid of now. Now, a lot of the time I will want to save the breakdancing attack for when I'm just surrounded by various enemies, especially if I see myself taking too much damage too quickly. Now, these specific enemies we will see for the rest of the game, unfortunately, and these are probably the most dangerous regular enemies, just because of how quickly they'll come on the screen with basically a full screen slide. If they're left alone and you're not attacking them, you'll most likely get hit by the slide unless you decide to use your special move. And unfortunately, we will be seeing plenty of them, as there is not that much of a variety of enemies, of more new enemies that you will see for the rest of the game. You will see a few other ones, and then more deadly combinations of sliders and a few other enemies that have yet to be seen. Fortunately, you're only going to be treated to seeing 3 enemies at once at any given time, which is probably a good thing. Because imagine having 3 of these slider enemies are troublesome enough. But imagine if you had to deal with more at one time. You're on your last life, and you have no continues left and no energy to do your special move. Every so often, just like the majority of games like this, you'll get some kind of health. Weapons you won't see. There's nothing in the stages to break, to obtain items, nothing. It's just you and your fist and kicks versus you and your fist and kicks versus the Dragon Zone game. It's also fortunate, at least for this version, that the bosses decided not to have any henchmen fight alongside them, which in some of the bosses' cases might be a good thing. Mr. Lee and Miss Chan on the first stage aren't too bad, but some of the stage bosses that follow are much worse, and they definitely don't need henchmen. That's probably the only other method you can use to avoid the slides, is to immediately jump out of the way. As far as being able to move to a higher and lower plane, you might get hit by the slide before you can actually react to it. Now here's the second boss. Might be a good thing that the boss decides not to have any henchmen fighting alongside. The great thing is, depending on the boss, you can easily just get away with letting them get up and just do a simple jump kick, and that gets rid of quite a number of enemies very easily, which normally would make things. You would think that a simple jump kick wouldn't be so effective. Although, unfortunately, that tactic doesn't work as well on every boss. And we're just waiting for stage 3 to load up. And you can't have any type of brawler game without some sort of enemy that just partially rushes this, shoulder tackles you of some sort. Fortunately, that's their best attack. And I definitely don't want any of the enemies to try to surround me. At least I can prevent it to an extent. At least while the tougher combinations of enemies, when everybody is introduced, doesn't show up. These enemies with the daggers are probably the second worst in the game. And that's mainly only because of the leap attacks. Similar to the sliders, you have to worry about them showing up from the air. And a lot of the times you will not see them, you will definitely not see them coming. Fortunately, once you lose all of your lives, you don't have to worry about starting the stage over. You just press start for the continue. Takes maybe about 2 or 3 seconds to load back up, and you continue from where you left off, which might be fortunate on maybe the hardest difficulty, but I have yet to see how much worse it is on hard as opposed to normal, providing there's that much of a difficulty at all, difference-wise. The only thing I've seen so far is the enemies. I don't know if the enemies are any more aggressive, but the cap of 3 enemies still exists. Which in reality could probably be more of just a port limitation. Now with this specific area just looks very ominous. Whatever it's supposed to be. If anything, this particular section, maybe they should have saved this for a very evil-looking, ominous boss. But surprisingly, they decided not to use this missed opportunity. Still no major threat from some of the enemies. Maybe with the exception of the leap attack here and there from the dagger welders. I still say that last area was a missed opportunity for a boss fight, if they had saved it for later. But at least here and there, they decide to give you a change of pace in the music. Although I feel that some of the music just doesn't mesh well to the stages. At least that's just my thoughts on it. So I don't know how many of you have played either this or its arcade counterpart. Especially considering the amount of games that are very similar to it. Fortunately, you can interrupt those jump attacks too, but more than likely you'll probably get hit by the dagger. Then you'll more likely get hit by the jump-in dagger attack more than you'll probably be able to stop them. Now we reach the stage 3 boss. This friendly looking guy who just seems to like using a lot of daggers. Definitely glad this character doesn't have henchmen fighting alongside him. This is a character where just trying to wait for the character to get up to do a single jump kick doesn't work as often as I would like. Just simply because, depending on my timing, it may actually get up with using spikes, just like that. Daggers, I should say. Honestly, I'm even surprised that the character can fight like this. Seems like it would be very uncomfortable. Well, that's 3 out of 5 stages cleared. Another useless cutscene of getting rid of your character taking down a Riot Zone boss. Now these particular characters, which looks like a really awkward reject from a Popeye cartoon. All they have is a simple long-range attack with their arm or their leg. But unfortunately, you will see more of them for the rest of the game now. Fortunately, they don't do much else. Either Bruiser, Junior, Cruiser. They may have one more name, but I don't recall where it is. Probably from now on, for the various areas, you'll see, for the sets of 3 enemies, you'll probably see a Bruiser, a Slider, and maybe one random other enemy. But you'll almost always now see a mixture of all of the enemies that you've seen so far. That particular wall must not be very sturdy in order for Tony Hawk to just punch completely through it. But it wouldn't be the first time we've seen stuff like that happen in games like these. See, it's unfortunate once an enemy hits you, once an enemy starts to hit you, without your special item or energy for it, you're just gonna continuously take hits. Fortunately, the cruisers and bruisers usually do more of a chop than any kind of a combo whatsoever. You'll most likely see more of that than you'll see a kick. I was hoping to keep those 3 enemies on one side. Fortunately, you don't have to be on, as with a majority of these games, you don't have to be completely on the same plane to hit somebody. Now we just happen to be in a random casino, probably owned by private members of the Dragon Zone game, maybe. It's too bad that they didn't allow for a greater assortment of enemies. I always like having quite a bit of more variety in enemies to face off and to deal with in a lot of these games. That double knockout was unfortunate. Especially since I'm not making that too much usage of the special move unless I really need it, but I still have plenty of extra credits left. Another useless wall broken. The hallway leading up to what will be near a boss. And just depending on the character you pick, you don't even get the option to change your character mid-game. Which probably wouldn't really matter for this game anyway, since it's the posters on the wall will indicate, even though you probably wouldn't know it first time playing, the posters on the wall actually indicate what the boss of this area will be. And we have the boss. Definitely glad Fuji doesn't have henchmen fighting alongside. Trying to utilize your combo against Fuji is practically pointless. Also your jump kick will work against Fuji while getting up at least maybe 60% of the time. The other 30% of the time, you'll find Fuji will get up with some kind of a spin attack. But fortunately, I'm glad Fuji doesn't have swords or anything. His worst attack is definitely the belly flop.
All right.
And now we're on to round 5. Take the elevator up to what's most likely the Dragon Zone game's headquarters. But it's a bit of a long way to reach the end. Now this is the level where you've seen all of the enemies that you're going to see for the whole game. But now you'll just mostly get mixtures of 3 sliders, bruisers, cruisers, maybe a Liz here or 2. And definitely more of the dagger enemies. Definitely want all of the slider enemies to stay to one side, if possible. And here's one of those combinations I was talking about earlier. Which is one of the major reasons why I'm glad for the amount of lives and credits you can have. Because at this point the enemies are, with the different type of enemies you have to deal with at once, even if it's just 3 of them, they're still aggressive enough to eat up at the amount of health you have very fast. With or without you using your special spin attack. I'm so glad that the bruiser and cruiser enemies don't have a kick attack. Well, a kick combo attack, I should say. I would definitely rather deal with 3 dagger enemies than 3 of the sliders. At least if I had to deal with them at the same time. That's unfortunate. I jump kick one of them just to get hit by a second one. It's a shame that sometimes, even though it looks like you're attacking the enemies, your hits will just somehow miss. Or your sprite and the enemy's sprite will basically meet, but both of your attacks will just one of your attacks will bypass the other. That's what I wouldn't mind being able to do to the sliders right when they immediately come onto the screen, just to get them out of doing that attack. But to line up a throw along with their slide is just much tougher than I would like it to be. Saying the jump kicks aren't really as effective in taking too much damage off of enemies either. If anything, just using the jump kicks is a deterrent for some of the enemies to keep some of them separated from you if there are others along the screen. But since jump kicks and throws don't do as much damage, you really just want to stick with your standard punch combo. And if necessary, use your special move alongside of after 2 hits, or even 2 punches in a throw. Anything that drops other than health for your character is useless. I would have liked to have seen what this game would have been like with at least some kind of weapon in your hands. But then again, if you have a weapon, then that means the enemies might decide the same thing. I believe this is the last major hallway before the final room of the game. This area looks like it could have been Fuji's training grounds. If the boss from stage 4 utilized the area enough. This would have been a perfect area for Fuji to make a reappearance in. Actually, I would have liked to have seen any of the bosses just come back as minor enemies. I don't think the Dragon Zone spent enough. I don't think the Dragon Zone gang had enough resources. There's so much more they could have done. That was an awkward position to deal with 3 dagger enemies showing up at once. I was expecting all of them to show up from one side of the screen instead of 2 places at once. Or even to just be surrounded by 3 different appearances on screen. I might have at least been able to knock him out of the air before getting hit by the attack. And now we arrive at the final boss. Which would probably be disappointing if it were this character. From what I have seen, they did change the final boss between the arcade Riot's city and this game. They're completely different final bosses. Fortunately, Quinn isn't too tough. Might as well see how to utilize a special. Screen freezes, and this statue apparently comes to life. Not unlike a certain other Final Fight character, but this particular Shogun actually has a projectile. Fortunately, just a simple stay back jump kick as it gets up is about as effective as it will get. Works more so against this final boss than the majority of other bosses in the game, which is pretty sad. Honestly, you'd think you would expect more from a final boss. Be unbeatable, something. Not just a simple jump kick while you get up shouldn't be that effective. Oh well, I got plenty of energy and lives to spare. Might also utilize the breakdancing attacks a few more times. And with that is Riot Zone. And basically the premise of the game, you also had to rescue someone, which I believe the character's name being rescued is Cindy. But other than that, thank you for watching Dragon Egg and Riot Zone. Stay tuned next for Kishin Doji Zenkai FX. And I will see everybody back later on for the Bonk Relay Race. Everybody enjoy the rest of TurboFest, and take care.